Welcome to the Junk Drawer Mamas with your hosts Dina Tricino and Christina Queen. We are so glad you're here with us as we sort through the drama and the trauma of life's hidden struggles to uncover hope and healing with a side of humor on this roller coaster ride we like to call extreme parenting. Whether you're raising a child or a teen with special needs, dealing with challenging behaviors, tackling addiction, mental health issues, or working through the trauma associated with foster care, it's a lot, and we get it. But you don't have to do this alone. So grab a cozy chair, settle in, and let's take this journey together.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Junk Drawer Mamas podcast. I'm here with my beautiful co-host Christina, and we are on episode 24. Can you believe that we are on 24 episodes of doing this amazing journey together of the Junk Drawer Mamas?
Yes.
Yep. So we are switching things up again. I know last week we told you that we were going to continue on our fear series, and we still will do that. But as we shared with you before, we are very Holy Spirit driven, and we want to do whatever God tells us to do. And there's a lot of things that we've been going through that we feel like maybe other moms are going through too. It's just been a big season of, transitions and heaviness and all of that. And so we just kind of wanted to share what we're going through in hopes that maybe somebody else can relate to that. So this one's more my experience, and I brought it to Christine. I just said, I think we need to share this. So we're just going to be obedient to that and just have a conversation with you guys. And we just hope that this blesses you. But if we dig into the junk drawer, the item that I would be pulling out today that I would want to deal with for me is, what do you do when you have a mom moment with your adult children and you didn't handle it right? So I had 2 of those in the last couple of weeks, and I wanted to share a little bit of those with you, and then what God really showed me in that. So we don't usually give parenting advice on here. That's one of the things that we were saying we didn't want to do. We didn't want to turn this into how to be a better parent at all. So that's not really what we're doing here. What God showed me through my experience with my children, the 2 interactions that I had, it showed me more of His love for me and Him as a parent to me, which is going to help me on my journey, which hopefully will help you and any mom that's watching on your journey. So we don't ever want to tell you how to be a parent, because I believe that most people are doing the very best that they can. If you're a special needs mom or you're going through an extreme situation with your child, you're already dealing with a lot and you don't need any unsolicited advice. You know what I mean? And so that's what I wanted to share about. And then I'll have Christina, hop in as she can, share some of her experiences. So anyway, that being said, there was a couple incidences that I had, and without getting into the details, just to, respect my children, but there was one of the conversations I had with one of my kids. Both of them were dealing with a lot of stuff. Two very different scenarios, but one of them, she had called and she wanted to just talk. She said, I need somebody to be logical and tell me what to do. So as the mom, I put my mom hat on and I was like, okay. Now, and usually what I've learned along the way with my adult children is to ask permission to speak into their lives first. I didn't always do that. So I'm going to be totally honest with you. I did not always do that. I always came out of the, you should do this, you should not do that. And I've learned along the way that that's not the best way to parent, because I wouldn't have wanted that when I was a kid. And so I've learned along the way, with many mistakes and ups and downs, that a lot of times our adult children just need us to ask, how can I support you? What is it that you need? Because sometimes they just want to talk, and sometimes they legitimately do want answers. And so she was like, no, I really do want you to tell me what it is. And so she begins to tell me all the stuff that she's going through. And as a mom, sometimes it's really hard to hear the stuff that your kids are going through, especially if it's, pretty heavy. And there was a moment where I was like, I don't want all the details, just kind of get to the point of what you wanted to ask me. But she still wanted to tell me the details. And I kept shutting her down because I didn't want her to focus on that. I wanted to find out what it was that she was asking of me. And then there came a point where whatever she said, I was triggered and I didn't agree with her. And I just said, I can't support this. And it didn't go that nice. Like, honestly, it turned into more of a, I can't believe you're doing this kind of situation. What is wrong with you? And that's not at all what she wanted. She wanted a safe space, and I turned it into, I can't believe you're doing this. And one of the things she said was that I'm worried about the fact that there might come a point where you will just give up on me and you won't love me anymore. Or you'll stop trying and you'll give up, or you won't love me anymore. And I said, those are 2 separate things. So let's be clear on that. One of them, you just said, we're going to give up. The other one is that we're going to stop loving you. I said, those are two different things. We will never stop loving you no matter what you go through. But will there come a point where we stop contributing to whatever it is you're going through or supporting or helping? It might. I said, you're not at that point, but I'm just saying it might get to that point. But it will never get to the point where we will stop loving you. So anyway, she proceeds to continue to tell me what she's telling me. And for whatever it was that she said, I just lost it and I did not handle it right. So the mom guilt instantly came in. I was like, how do I fix this? It's kind of like the toothpaste. You squeeze it all out. Now you can't put it all back in. What do I do? And she didn't hang up on me like she usually would do in years past. She just said, I really have to go now. And I knew that whatever I said, I had crossed the line. And she hung up and I haven't talked to her since. And then I had another conversation with my son, and he was dealing with a pretty heavy issue too. And he was just trying to explain to me from his perspective what it seemed like. And he said something that I didn't want him to say about himself. So I instantly went into Mama, like, don't say that about yourself. That's not true. And then he said something else. And I said, that's not true. You shouldn't speak those things over yourself. And he said to me, I feel like I just got to walk around on eggshells. I just want to get this out. Like, just let me say what I got to say. At first, I felt shut down and almost rejected myself. And I stopped talking and I said, okay. But then I really just listened to what he was saying, and God really used this as a teaching moment for me. So that's really what the premise behind this particular episode that I want to share with you is God used my parenting as a teaching moment for me and bringing me back to a place that I needed to be to see. And so what both of my children needed in those moments is they just needed someone to listen. They did not need a sermon. They did not need correction. They did not need advice. They did not need condemnation. They didn't need any of that. And I'm not saying I was condemning them or anything like that. I'm just saying that what they needed more than anything was somebody to be over in their space and remember what it was like to be them. And so God had to bring me back to that place, because sometimes when you are on this healing journey, which we are on, we wouldn't even be doing a podcast if we weren't on a healing journey. Like, honestly, we wouldn't even be able to be in a space right now to be able to share our stories with you if we hadn't been on some sort of a transformational healing journey. Well, sometimes you forget how far you've come when you've done so much inner healing and so many courses. And honestly, I've had a lot of leadership training too. And a lot of that has helped as well. I forget where I was at. And I'm not saying it by any means that I've arrived. And I'm sure, Christina, you would say the same thing, that there's no way that you've arrived. But are you better than you were when you were 20, 25, those ages, 30? Okay. And so sometimes I forget that at those ages, I did not know who I was. I was not operating in my true God-given identity. I certainly didn't understand anything about the enemy or how to take authority over that. So I'm trying to speak to my kids from that place because I'm angry with an enemy that's trying to kill, steal, and destroy my children. And I can see it. And it makes me angry that they don't see it. And I'm expecting them to fight from the same place that I'm fighting from. And I forget that they are bleeding on the inside and they're battle weary. I'm going to get emotional. I didn't think I was going to get emotional. Sometimes our kids are on a battlefield and they just need to get to triage. They just need to get to a safe place, and they need help. They need medical help. They need mental help. They need spiritual help. They need physical help, whatever it might be. And all we're trying to do as parents is fix them or tell them, don't go down that path or do all of this. And sometimes you just need to let them be in the pain and hold their hand and not tell them what to do. And I didn't do that with either of them. And God used that situation to show me that he didn't do that with me. He not once did he ever tell me what to do or point out a list of to-dos or say I shouldn't speak those words over myself. He just listened. And I believe that's how Jesus was. I think he just listened. I think he held their hands. I think he showed them that he loved them. And then he corrected them. He didn't condemn them or shame them. He corrected them, gently corrected them. He gained their trust first. Now, I'm not saying I don't have my children's trust or that they don't know that I love them. But in that moment, they needed more than my advice. They needed me to just sit in the space where they were at and remember how hard it was to be there. And so that is what God showed me through my parenting, is that God still is a parent to us. And sometimes he takes us back to a point of pain for two reasons: either to show us and reflect on where we've come from so that we can understand how to help other people. And then he also shows it to us to show us that we are still there and that we need to understand how to operate and do whatever it is that he's asking us to do. So it's been both for me. With the situation with my kids, it was mostly like, I want to show you what this looks like if this was you and I was talking to you that way. if I came out and just didn't hear what you had to say. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that is a heavy thing to carry. Not only is it a heavy thing as a mom to see your kids going through something. So we talk a lot about special needs kids and kids that are dealing with trauma in our own homes. But when they're adult children and they're out of your home, that's even harder, I think, because in the home, you can control it. You know what I'm saying? You could protect them. But when they're out of the house, you can't protect anything that they do. And like they still want you, but then they don't want you. So you're in this tug of war of, I want you, mom and dad, I need you. But then on the other hand, let me do this on my own. And you're left with this, like, I don't know what to do. And that can be a very heavy burden to carry if you don't know how to handle it. And I thought I knew how to handle it. And God showed me that there's some areas there that still need to be healed. And honestly, even when my son said, I feel like all I got to do is walk around on eggshells. And I felt like, no, that's not at all what you have to do. But he said that to me before. And I don't think I ever heard it until this particular time. He feels like he has to say everything perfectly, because if he doesn't say it perfectly, then I'm going to correct him. Even if I'm correcting him in love, saying, oh, no, I don't want you to talk bad about yourself. I don't want you to say those things about yourself. That's not how God made you. I'm trying to encourage him, but he's like, seriously, just let me talk. Let me say whatever I want to say, however it occurs to me. That's exactly what he did say. I just want to say how it occurs to me, whether it's right or wrong. This is what I see it to be right now. And so sometimes when we're helping other people, we've got to get to that place. So then it made me think about all the moms out there that may come across our path, that might come across a podcast. Maybe we'll meet you at a conference somewhere. And all you want to do is have someone hold your hands and look you in the eye and say, I got you. I understand you. I know what you're going through. And you don't want advice. Now, maybe you need it, and maybe what we would say would help. But at that moment, you might just need somebody to see you. And so then we talked about God. The God who sees you is called 𝗿𝗵𝗿𝗄𝗏, God 𝗿𝗵𝗿. And the God who heals you, that's going to heal those broken places, is called 𝗿𝗵𝗿𝗏. And so those are the two things that God had to bring me back to, that not only does God see you, he sees all the things that others don't see, and he also heals you. It's really not us that are going to heal our kids or heal our marriage or fix our finances or heal the infirmities in our bodies or heal the trauma in our families. It is God. It is 𝗿𝗵𝗿 Rapha that is going to do it. He's the one that's going to do it. Now, he might use us in the process to do that. He might have given you the gift of healing or the gift of a voice to speak, but it's God that does the healing. And we partner with God in our parenting so that God can heal our children. Anyway, that's really what I wanted to share. I don't know how else it's going to go. But anyway, if you want to, share a little bit of your thoughts, Christina, because you've had more kids than me and more adult children than me. So I'm sure that at some point you felt this.
I don't know. Do I have more adult children than you?
I have 4 adult children. How many do you have?
Okay, yeah, okay. I think I've got 5.
Okay.
I think I've got 5 right now. Yeah, that's such a difficult thing, and something that I, oh my gosh, definitely struggle with. First of all, knowing when to keep my mouth shut. I still have not reached that great level that you have and ask permission. If I want to say something to my kids, I'm just like, what, and say it. So I definitely still need some major growth in that area. I mean, I would like to say that I've come a little ways, but I've got a long ways still to go. And most of my adult children are still pretty young. They're like, gosh, they're 19, 18, 19, 20, 21. They're like, well, just turning 22. So 22, 21, 20, 19. Yeah. And then my daughter will be 30 this year, my biological daughter. Woo. So, I mean, I feel like they're still pretty young. And my oldest daughter, our biological daughter, she's got the 4 grandbabies, I mean, like, I don't know. I feel like I've probably given her way too much unsolicited advice, especially just around grandbabies. She's a good mom, though. She takes care of her kiddos, so there's no complaints there. But I've definitely given advice where she's not asked for it. And it's hard. It is super hard as a mom to just sit here and keep your mouth shut, especially when it feels like they're headed in a direction that you do not want to see them going. And you're like screaming and yelling inside and to just keep that suppressed and not say anything. But I do believe that is, isn't that a fruit of the spirit? To have patience and love and kindness and all of that is just to be able to keep control of that and to not just spew out what we're thinking and how we're feeling a lot of times, because let's face it, they make us feel really frustrated a lot of times, really sad, really anxious, really angry, really all of the things. Or my adult children can get me to that point probably quicker than my little kids.
Yeah.
Because there, like you said, there's no,
Well, part of us, I'm like,
we can't do anything
better. I didn't
about it.
raise you like that. Like a lot of
Yeah,
times it's
oh
like,
my gosh,
I did
I'm
not
like, I
raise
didn't raise you like this. But my mom didn't raise me the way that some of the things that I was doing either. I mean, I was raised in a very strict home that, like, we were raised in church.
Yeah,
We
that's the
always
same
went to
with me
church.
too.
Right.
My
And
parents did
so
not
I
raise
didn't
me to do the stuff
see,
that I did
my
bad. Not
parents
at
never
all.
drank. They
They
never
didn't
did
either.
anything like that. But then, you hit 16 and like the world was different in the 90s. It was in the 90s and I was 16 and I was just ready to,
She's a little
I'm like,
younger. I was 16 in the 80s. So.
well, so I mean, but still, it's still the same thing. 16 in the
Yeah.
80s, 16 in the 90s.
Yeah, 80s was
You
cooler.
hit that age where you want to explore the world, and my mom could have said that to me over and over again. My parents said, I didn't raise you like that. No, they're right. They did not raise me like that. But regardless, I wanted to experience things for myself. And no matter what they said, it felt like it would go in one ear and out the other. I did respect and love them. It wasn't a matter of that. It was just like, it's my turn. It's my turn to be in charge of me. And sometimes when you have an overly strict home, once you hit that age to where you can make your own decisions, it's a free for all. You're like, nobody's telling me what to do.
I'm drinking out of the milk carton all by myself, and I'm gonna put it back in the fridge.
Yeah,
after
and
I did that.
I mean, I don't think I was ever a wild I mean, I've never been like anything, like done anything too extreme. I just haven't. That's just not who I am. But there was definitely some testing the waters. There was definitely some things that was outside of the way I was raised and how I was raised. And I see that with my kids now. I'm like, oh my gosh, what are they doing? Where did they, oh my, you know better. Like, you know better, and that's what I want to say. Sometimes you just want to grab them and shake them up, but like, what are you doing? But that's not what God does to us.
No.
He wants us to see the truth, just like we want our kids to see the truth. He wants us to open our eyes and to look, hey, this is not a good path that you're going down. He wants us to see all that, but he will never push himself on us. And we try so often, especially me, and I will not lie about that. I want my kids to see things from my eyes. Like, just listen to me. Just listen, because I know this. I've been there. I've done this, just and that's not what God does to us. He gets us to where he wants us by loving us in that direction, not by pushing us and forcing us and
I don't think any amount of
bullying
pushing
us
is
into that
ever going to
position.
bring somebody to their senses.
No, and
not.
honestly,
it's
a lot
make
of
them
times
run the other direction,
right? And a
shut
lot of
down.
times for me, if I'm being truthful and honest, a lot of times I can kind of try to bully my kids in that direction, like, just to the point to where they feel like they have to comply.
Mom, are you the guilt trip? You put the guilt trip on them?
I mean, I have definitely been there, done that multiple times. I'm like, well, they're not listening to reason, so maybe I can get them there another way. And that's not God. That's us in our own, I think, desperation, trying to get our kids to listen and to follow some kind of common sense or some kind of, biblical truth or whatever. And if they're not in that space, like, again, Danny Silk says that, you can't give them an answer to a problem they don't know they have.
Yes.
There's if they don't even recognize that there's a problem, you coming along with a solution is not going to help anything, because they don't even see that they've got a problem. So, we've got to keep
I think with my kids too, though, at least my son, when we were talking, is that it's not that he doesn't know that there's a problem. He absolutely knows that, but he gets into this space of feeling so condemned, like he's worthless. And I was trying to, like, don't say that about yourself. But when you're in that place and you really do feel like you've screwed up so much and that you've made so many mistakes, there's no way out of it. Like, that's how I felt when I felt like in such despair that I wanted to end my life. It's like, there's no way to get out of all this mess that I'm in. Whether I put myself there or somebody else contributed to it, I just wanted off the planet because I couldn't handle being in the pain and the dysfunction anymore. And so sometimes you get to that place where you're like, I know there's a problem. I don't know how to fix it, and I'm a mess, you know? And so
Yeah.
even telling them a good thing to help that maybe helped you, they're just not in a place of receiving
Yeah,
that.
they're not in that space. Yeah, if they're not in that space,
So
you
it's
can
not
tell them
knowing they
all
need the
you want.
problem, and then there's knowing they need
Right.
the problem, but not ready to receive the answer
It's
yet.
a
'cause-
mindset shift. There has to be a mindset shift there. And it's just like, I mean, I can still have those times and those days. And you've probably, I know you've seen me in that, especially like when I was sick on our trip. When
She
you
was such
feel
a
a certain
peach.
way, well, when you feel a certain way and you're just in this mindset of, this is miserable, I'm sick, I don't feel good, or this is miserable, I've gotten myself into this, I have no way to get me out. Yeah, that's easy for you to say because you can do XYZ, and I can't do any of that because I don't have any of those up. When you get yourself in that mindset of feeling sorry for yourself, you're not looking for a way out. You just want to sit there and wallow in it. You don't want people to give you all the answers. And if they do come at you with answers, you can shoot every single one of them down.
Yeah,
You
you
will
get
find something
defensive.
wrong with every single one of them because they are not agreeing with you and letting you stay in your self-pity if they're trying to help
Stay
dig
in
you
my
out of
pity
that hole.
party. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, exactly, because they're not really wanting a solution. They're wanting somebody to sit there with them and feel sorry for them a lot of times. And when you don't do that, and especially as a parent, I think that does happen a lot. You want to give them the solution. You want to help them out of it, and they might not really be looking for help out of it. They might just be looking for you to I did have this situation. Now you're bringing it out, Dina.
That's why we dig in the junk drawer.
So
Can't keep it in there.
I did have this situation with my 20-year-old the other day, and she came home. She was upset. She left work or whatever. She came in, and raising as many kids as I have, maybe I'm not always as sympathetic or even feeling like somebody in a certain way, and what you think their intention is in something can be a trap too. Just thinking, oh, I know this kid, I know what they're thinking, I know what they're doing, I know what they're trying to, what reaction they're trying to give, whatever. That could be a bad place to be, because sometimes you've made up your mind about what they're wanting or what they're thinking before anything's even come out. So we got to be very careful about that too. At least I do. But
That's a really good point.
she was really frustrated because of something that had happened at work, and I was already dealing with stuff up to here that day, which is most days. But I was already in the space. I was working. I was just trying to get stuff done and trying to, my own brain was full. And, she came in here and I didn't handle it the way that I should have. I'm just like, that's life. People are jerks. I mean, pretty much I didn't say the word suck it up, buttercup, but that's kind of the conversation, how it went, was just like, this is adulting, And I know she probably just needed a hug and just needed me to be like, oh, and I was kind of already in this mindset of, well, you're not a baby, you're a grown up, this is the world that we live in. So
sometimes that's personality. Like sometimes your personality is not a really huggy type of person.
Yeah.
But also it's the generation that we came from. Like we were just talking about 80s and 90s. We came from that Gen X generation where it's like we were
suck it up, buttercup.
Suck it up,
like,
buttercup. We were the latchkey kids.
Right.
Our parents worked, we came home and there was nobody there. We took care of ourselves or whatever. We drank from the hose. We had to walk 5 miles to school, all that kind of stuff. That funny stuff that they always say. But we did. We really did have to learn all of that. And our parents before that even had to learn more.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think, my husband and I were just having a conversation about this, that like, I think he feels like the generation now, and again, I get them mixed up. Like, I don't know if we're on alpha, whatever the generation is now.
I have no clue.
Anyway, what our younger kids
I don't even know what generation I am.
And the generation right before that is very emotional. Like they're overly emotional and they're overly sensitive. But I think there's a balance to be had, because I don't think we should just be this suck it up buttercup and deal with it. Just bite the bullet and wipe yourself off.
Could you imagine if Jesus did that to us?
I know.
Like,
and so then
crying
if we're
and
doing that, then we're creating these emotionally unstable kids. Like they're not emotionally strong or healthy. They're just told, stop crying, suck it up, wipe it off, and you'll be fine. But that's not actually even biblical, or is it healthy? So now we've raised generations, and so then I think it keeps, each generation gets less and less. Not only do we get further away from the truth of God, I think we have more and more things that get added into that. And now we literally have, a world full of kids that are spiritually depleted. They don't even really even know who Jesus is or understand God. They don't even know their true identity or, honestly, what identity they are. And then, they're just very emotional in general. But my
Well,
heart still goes out to them because like I'm saying, whether we look at them as confused or not, we contributed to that. We as
right.
parents contributed to that.
Well, and a lot of us grew up too, when we grew up in church, a lot of us grew up in so much religion that it's almost like a practice. You hearing yourself saying stuff that your parents said to you, that their parents said, it just because you grew up in it. A lot of it's just religion and just religious mindset and not really the heart of God. It's just what we've always heard. So then you say it to your kid, and they're already kind of shut down to all of that. They're already like, I don't want to hear all the religious stuff. I don't want to, this is a different world we live in now than even what it was when we were young, because there's so much access to everything and so much people with opinions that's on TikTok. And let's face it, all of our kids, that's what they're listening to all day, every day. And so they're hearing other people talk about, how they grew up in church and how, and a lot of them are just
There's a
done
lot of
hearing
church hurt
it.
out there.
Lots and lots of church hurt. A lot of people are done hearing it. And honestly, we were not raised, at least I wasn't truly raised. I was raised that God loves us, but I was never raised to where I just felt the heart of God. I was never raised to where I just felt like God loved me so much. I was raised like, hey, if you do this wrong, you're going to go to hell. You are going to burn in hell. And, if you
I
don't,
wasn't raised like that, so I don't.
it was hardcore. And I think a lot of Christians were raised in that kind of environment. Like, hey, you better not get out of line because, God, you
When I
will go
was
to hell.
younger, we went to Catholic church, and I don't really honestly remember a whole lot. I just know that, especially in our Italian culture, we just went to church because it was required to go to
Yeah.
church. And we did our basic catechism and confirmation and all that. But it wasn't until I was a teenager that my mom actually became a born again believer, and she did
Yeah.
teach that to us. Now my dad really didn't go to church a lot. He's never was a consistent church goer. He said he knew God in his own way, and I think deep down he didn't feel like worthy enough, but he always liked this tough, gruff exterior kind of guy. And there were
Yeah.
seasons where he would go for a little while. There were certain churches that he would go for a little while and everybody loved him, and then he wouldn't go. But mostly it was my mom that went to church, and she instilled those principles in us. But
Yeah.
when we really started learning about God, it was from a Christian perspective. But so I never went through the like fire and brimstone, you're going to
Oh
hell
yeah,
kind of
no,
thing.
I was raised in it from the time I can
You know,
remember. I can remember being a little bitty thing there on the
we were
pews and
raised that God
whew,
was real, but we weren't necessarily
right.
raised in a, like a spirit-filled type house where we prayed about everything or we learned the ways
Yeah.
of God. And again, our parents learned from their parents who've learned from
Right.
their parents. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and
So
my parents, both of them was kind of first generation. I mean, like their parents, they weren't raised in church. Neither one of my parents were. So, they had gotten saved when they were like in their 20s as we were. I think my oldest sister had just been born, and so we were being raised while they were learning about all of it. And they were taking us around to all the, meetings and the, all the church stuff. And I just remember as a kid, a lot of times just being afraid of, man, if I do this wrong, I'm going to hell. I mean, I can remember being afraid of that a lot. And then, everybody jokes about, you see a lot of the little jokey things and stuff on like TikTok and stuff where people thought they, as a teenager growing up during that time, thought that they missed rapture, and they'd come home and their family wouldn't be at home. So you're like, oh my gosh, the rapture took place.
oh my God.
That's what I grew up in. I grew up in that hardcore stuff,
So I have to
watching the
ask you
movies.
that if you grew up in that kind of a household, what the heck did your mom say when her 16-year-old came home and said, I'm going to have a baby and I'm getting married?
Okay, well, first of all, it didn't
I'm
quite
just
go like
curious. This
that.
has nothing to do with this episode, but come
So
on,
it
we got to
didn't quite
know.
go like that. Is what actually happened is I had a whole plan of how I was going to tell my mom, and that was that because I
Our
was
good little
raised very
church girl.
strict, right? I was raised very strict, so my plan was, and I mean, we got spanked, we got our butts whooped. So my plan was
You
to,
got your butts whooped for getting pregnant.
Well, I mean, we had spent our whole childhood getting our butts whooped, so I just thought,
She spanked you?
I thought, surely I'm going to get a whooping for this.
Oh my God.
So I was like, my plan was to be like, Mom, I'm pregnant, but you can't whoop me because you'll hurt the baby. I mean, I had it in my, I mean, obviously that won't hurt, but anyways, but I did sit down. I did sit down and tell my mom, and it was really hard. I was like, Mom, I'm pregnant. And it took a lot for me to tell her that, because I mean, this was my first boyfriend I ever had, the first guy I ever kissed. I mean, I was like, 16, but had never even had a boyfriend before. And so I'm like, and she just kind of looked at me. She was like, I kind of wondered. So she, knew that obviously something was going on. We wasn't just holding hands, apparently. So, and then from that point on, I mean, me and him had already talked about, before we ever was intimate, we had talked about wanting to get married when we turned 18 and having a life together and all that. We had plans, but that definitely moved things along. And my mom and dad are like, well, you need to get married. And I'm like, well, okay. And
cool,
we were both,
most of those kind of stories
on board.
Never survive. And you guys have been married for how many years?
32 years.
32 years
was February.
38 foster kids, 17 kids that you have now, I think you said.
Yeah.
How many are in your house right now?
Not 17. There's not 17 in my house right now.
You have 17.
17 total. But yeah, over about 35-ish that we've parented. I lost count. I have to go back and retrace.
So you have 11 in your house right now?
But I'm telling you, it is quite the journey. And yeah, no, I was raised very strict, but then I didn't listen to my parents either. And so I've got to go back and think about that. Like when I'm seeing my kids do some stuff that I'm like, man, I'm gonna smack that right out of their hand. Like, I'm like, what are you doing? What are you thinking?
The thing that God really had to bring me back to, because my kids,
because they're adults. It's like,
the things that I did, if they had done them at my age when I was doing them, like, there's no way. They're good kids. Honestly, they really are.
And that's what I've got to remind myself.
Things now that I'm not so happy with, but I'm just saying,
I've got to remind myself of that, because I've told my husband, I'm like, like, if some things that you've seen your teenage ones that are getting ready to move out of the house, because I'm pretty strict with the cell phone thing, and they don't get them until they're a certain age. We're pretty strict with that, just because that's a whole world that is open to your kids. And we've seen a couple things that was not good that our kids had jumped onto. And I'm like, can you imagine if we would have had cell phones, the stuff that we were doing? And I'm like, we were good kids. Or at least I was. I don't know about my husband, but I was a good kid.
I was a good kid that hung around with not so good kids. And did not so good things because I hung around with those kids.
Right. And I think it's part of that we've got to trust what we put in our kids. And if by chance, our kids have moved out and we weren't saved while we were raising them and we didn't teach them about God, then we've also got to still trust that God is a good God and he will honor our prayers now and what we're praying over our kids now. But we've got to trust that we raised them right. We got to trust that we did something right. There's that scripture in the Bible that says when our children, raise them and
raise up your children in the ways of the Lord, and they will not depart from it.
But the specific thing it says is that when they are old, they will not depart from it. And that's been brought to my attention more recently, especially with my 18, 19, 20, these young, because I'm like, I feel like they departed way from some of them are like, what are you doing? And I've been reminded that it says when they are old, they will not depart from it. Not while they're still young, but while they're old. Awesome. When they are old, they will not depart from it because it's in there. That seed is in there. And just like we had to walk our own walk and we did some stuff that I look back at and I was like, yikes, I don't want my kids to do that. Yikes, I don't want, we've got to trust God with them. They're his kids and he loves them even more than what we do. So we've got to trust that we did things right. And if we didn't, then we got to trust our prayers that we're praying over our kids all the way around. We just got to trust God with our kiddos, young or old.
Yes, absolutely. I want to go back to something that you said, because you said that, you haven't gotten to the place where you asked their permission. The only reason why I got to that place is because for so long I didn't do that and I did it wrong so many times and it fractured the relationship.
Yeah.
And so what happens, I would say when you're in a good family, because we are a good family, people just step around it and they don't really address it. It's not like they, ran away and didn't ever want to talk to us again, but they didn't bring things to us. And so I had to heal that. And that actually, I learned that in a leadership course that I was in, how to support the space and ask, how can I support you in this? Instead of just assuming that you know what they want. So I actually had to be trained in that. So when you say like, I haven't quite got there, where I went through some extensive training
because that doesn't come natural to me.
It doesn't. So I actually took quite a few years of training on how to do that. And it wasn't just for parenting. I'm saying it was for, in general, anybody.
Yeah.
Anybody in business or leadership, or, whether you're running a business or whatever. And at that time we were running an outreach. And so anyway, I learned how to do that, but I made a lot of mistakes before I did that. And the reason why I asked that is because if you don't ask ahead of time, how can I support you? You're going to go into that with your interpretation of what you think that conversation is. And you already come in with these preconceived notions of, they are doing this, they want this, they don't know this, and you really don't know.
Right.
I don't actually know the situation. If they're not living in my house, I really don't know what it is that they're going to tell me. We might assume it is. And so I had to start asking that. Now, I don't necessarily always do that correctly. I'm just saying that when I am operating in the right way, I will usually say, what do you need from me? And if they just need me to listen, as hard as that is, when you know that you want to say something, I just have to listen. Most of the time, they actually do say, no, I do want to know. But they want a little bit of mix of listening and then telling. So even though they say, I just want you to listen, they ultimately do want to know. They wouldn't be coming to you if they didn't want to know, how do I get myself out of this? And are you going to still love me if I tell you what just happened? And so I had to make sure, I don't know what my husband does when he talks to them privately. I just know that when I talk to them, it doesn't matter what they tell me that they did. That's not going to change the way I love them, the same way Jesus is. And so I do try to parent that, but I still do operate out of my own flesh and my own trauma sometimes. And so the last 2 times this past, week or so, that happened, that came back up. So it showed me that there's an area there that still needs to be dealt with, that is not fully healed yet. And that I did not operate in the fruits of the Spirit, or even 1 Corinthians 13, love, where it talks about love is not judgmental or any of those kind of things, like that whole scripture.
Yes.
I didn't operate out of that kind of love at all.
Right.
And so if I would have just asked, what do you need from me right now? I probably would have avoided both of those conflicts that I had.
Right. Well, because a lot of times we throw at them what we think they need or what we need. And for me, especially lately with all the little kids I got in the house, with my older kids a lot of times, and this is not something that I'm happy about or proud of, and it's definitely something that I need to work on 100%, is that a lot of times the answer or the way that I come at them is just out of exhaustion. Like, I'm already exhausted. I'm already tired.
That's the next part I was going to want to touch on.
I'm already doing so much as it is that I can't deal with what you deem to be this major event when it's literally this big. Like, if you want to know some more problems, come over here and sit down with me and I'll give you, but that's not fair. No. That's not fair, because it is a big deal to them. And if we are not their safe space, and if we're not careful and we treat them like, oh my gosh, here we go again, or, oh, this is not a big deal. If we're not careful, then we will chase them out of that relationship that they have with us, and that us being their safe space.
It also chases them out of the relationship with God, because then they start thinking that God isn't there to protect them either.
Right. And so we've got to be, and I had a big test in this about a week ago, and I kind of told you a little bit about it, but I was already tired. And it's not quite my adult child, but he's close enough. He's 17. And okay, I just got, a couple months ago, I just got me a new van. I got me a Kia Carnival that's big enough to fit, a lot of the kids in. Not all of the kids, but a lot of them. And so I was really happy about my beautiful new van. And, he's a good driver. And so I let him drive it, here and there. And he ran to pick up his sisters. And he called me, and he had went to back out of the parking spot, and I think he was in a hurry, and he was frustrated because he couldn't find him in the park. And he backed and like kind of scraped up against another vehicle as he's backing out in my car. And he sent me the picture, and he's like, I scraped the van. And I'm like, okay, I was planning for a baby shower. Okay. and I was already super high stress, so much to get done because I'm planning a baby shower for my 19-year-old, and had like, I don't know, 60, 70 people coming over like the next day. And I'm like trying to get all this stuff done. And my immediate reaction was my steam. I think steam was coming out my ears, I'm pretty sure. But he was smart. He's a smart kid. He texted it to me instead of called me like, hey, Mom. So that was good, first of all, because then he didn't have to listen to my blah, 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 because that's probably what would have happened. I'd have been like, are you kidding me, blah, blah. And not that, again, that I'm proud of that, but thank God he texted it to me. Number one, like I said, he's smart. And the way he tried to word it, he's like, I scraped the car. It's not scraped. This sucker is dented. Okay. It is dented. It's not, oh, he said scratched. He said scratched. It's like a crater down the side of my van. Anyways, it's not that bad, but it is. And by the time he got home, I was like, I told my husband, who was going back and forth outside, and I'm like, oh, this is so frustrating. Now I'm going to have to, we get to do all the insurance stuff. And I was kind of like getting, and then I'm like, you know what? He loved the van. He really does. He likes he's 17. He loves the Kia Carnival van. And that's why he liked to drive it. And I'm like, you know what? He's probably, and he sounded more upset even about it than what I did. Like he sounded like, and I know he was beating himself up about it already.
And
so
he's afraid of you.
No, when he came,
she's tiny, but she's fierce.
When
man.
he came through the back door, I could just see it in his eyes. And I didn't have it in me to say a word to him. I'm like, you just look like you need a hug. And I just hugged him. I gave him a hug. And I was like, no, but his sisters was like, Mom, I think he cried in the car. Don't tell him that. But I don't know whether he really did or whether they just said it. But he was obviously he was already beating himself up.
He doesn't watch these podcasts.
Yeah. He was already beating himself up about it. And there was absolutely no reason for me to do the same. It was a mistake. I knew he regretted it. And, we do that a lot of times. We'll just be like, look at what you did and blah, blah. You don't think they already know that? They're probably already beating themselves, just like us. God doesn't do that to us. Look at what you did. We're already over there, and all the condemnation and guilt and shame, beating ourselves up about the way we did it. God doesn't need to do that, just like we don't need to do that to our kids, whether they're grown. Like, look at the mess you're making of your life, blah, blah, blah. I've never said that to any of my kids that I know. I've never said, look at the mess you're making of your life. But I mean, sometimes we can have those hard conversations, and we need to give grace to our kids, our adult kids, just the same way God gives to us.
One of the things that you said was, we parent from a place of exhaustion already. Like, if I'll give you some problems. I'll tell you my problems. And, and like you said, that's not fair. And that was what I wanted to leave us with here, is that as special needs moms, and as moms that are navigating whatever your extreme situation is, we always say, if it's extreme for you, it's extreme. Okay. Yeah. Whatever that might be. You might be a single mom that has multiple kids, and you're working a full-time job and trying to hold down the entire household. You can be very exhausted, and you may parent from that place of exhaustion. And I believe that Jesus was exhausted too. I mean, all the walking that they did in their ministry years, of course he was exhausted, but he never reacted out of that exhaustion. He always showed love to everybody that he was doing that to. But here's the thing that happens when we do that, like, especially when you have a special needs child. A lot of the attention goes to those kids, and then your other kids kind of get lost in the shuffle. Yeah. And that happened. Now, 3 of my kids were out of the house already, but my youngest son was in the house when Gracie was born. I mean, they were all transitioning out, but there's only 10 years difference between them. But, my oldest is 38. So they were, long out of the house. And my oldest son was in the military by then. He didn't even see Gracie until he had come home from the military. So there were 2 still in the house, 1 almost out. And then Tony at the time was only 10. So he was around for the majority of me raising Gracie. And we were running our youth outreach, which we were working with kids that were at risk in extreme situations, extreme parenting situations with them. And so many times I just brushed off his problems because I'm like, you have nothing to be upset about. Right. You know what I'm saying? These kids that we're working with here, like, many of them are suicidal. Their parents are in jail, all this stuff. Like, what do you got to cry about? And I didn't actually say those things, but I felt like, like, he didn't have anything to worry about. I didn't realize the internal pain that he was going through, and the internal stress and depression, and how much we actually did ignore that. Yeah. And we've had a lot of healing that we had to do for that. But I always felt like my responsibility was to those that needed more help But along the way, we lose touch with the kids that are right in front of us, our own children, our own family. And not only that, like our marriage really struggled through that time too. God never calls you to help other people at the expense of your own family and your own children. And so I just want to encourage us that those of us that are walking through a special needs situation, your adult children or whatever the siblings are in that house still need your full attention, not from a place of, I've already dealt with these kids all day long and I don't have time for this. We have to make time for it.
Right.
We absolutely do have to make time for it. And that is on us. That is not on our kids to try to meet us at that place. As parents, we have the responsibility to make sure that we show up fully for them as well. And that's honestly, where I have failed.
I think
so many times.
I think something important to remember too, and I'm just reminding myself of this. Sometimes you think, especially when you have the sheer mass volume of kids that I have, it's like when you get one out the door, you're like, okay, another one down, another one, and you kind of just get to this.
And then they're having grandbabies, so now you never run out of kids because now you're watching grandbabies.
Well, and
you're like your own little nursery daycare.
If you're not careful, at least, from this, like you can get to the point to where you're like, okay, they're grown, they're okay. I've got to deal with the ones that are still at home. And a lot of times I think probably if we're looking at this realistically, the ones that are out and in the world by themselves and you don't have any say, they don't have your help, they don't have your advice, they don't have, not that they don't have your advice, but like just in the little things, like the daily things, like what would mom tell me to do here? If you're not available for that, if you're just like, hey, you're on your own. If that's your attitude towards them, you're number one, you're doing your kids a huge disjustice in parenting them because they need us, I think, a lot of times even more when they're out on their own. Absolutely. Than what they did here while they're here. And that's tough because
a lot of the stuff that when they're at home, we're taking care of it. When they're out of the house, now they're taking care of their food and their shelter and their schedules. And I remember the first time that I don't know which one it was, that they didn't know how to handle whatever it was, insurance or paperwork or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of times we don't even think about to show them that until it comes up. But we were handling all of their needs until they get out of the house. So of course now they're left with dealing with the whole I'm on my own, I could do it myself thing, and then realize, wait, there's a lot of stuff that I didn't know that I have to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
You guys hear a lot of noise in the background. She's got some traffic in the background because her air conditioning's out, so her window's open. So every time you hear
that's a fun level of stress right now that I'm trying to deal with. Anyways, but it
let's not
is
parent
a lot.
our kids through our broken air conditioner stress.
Yeah, at least it's not baking hot yet here in Ohio because
my office is pretty hot up here too. I have a portable air conditioner, but I have it off right now because it's very loud.
Yes.
Anyway, we'll see how this works in the summertime when we're almost to that point where it's going to be too hot to have it off. So anyway,
yes.
Well, we're almost at the full time here on the episode. I didn't know if there's any last minute things you wanted to say before we. Just encourage everybody that it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, as we know, just like we never stop needing our Heavenly Father or Jesus to parent us, God to parent us, our kids never stop needing us to parent them, but it needs to be in love, always in love, not from pride, not from arrogance, not from stress, not from fear of what we think is going to happen, but it always needs to be in love. We need to be Christ-like. We need to remember that when we're dealing with our own kids. And a lot of times we forget that because we're parenting from all those other places. Like, shouldn't you know this by now? Or shouldn't, that's not fair. Shouldn't we know some of the things that God's still trying to teach us?
What if he says like how many times I got to tell you this?
Yeah, exactly. So, again, we just need to give grace in all of that area. And before we jump off this call, I will remind everybody that we are in full swing for our summer fun challenge. My kids have been reminding me like, oh, isn't this the first fun week? And we're like, yes, the pool officially opens this week here in the Queen House.
We haven't quite got ours open yet. We're still working on that. We don't have a heated pool, so.
Yeah, well, we got ours isn't heated either, and it's been freezing, and the kids are like, I'm like, they would not care. They would jump in like this. I'm like, okay, I'll sit on the sidelines and watch, but no, they're coming to get it up and going Wednesday, so the kids are excited about that, and I think we're planning a trip to the zoo this week. So summer fun has officially begun. The kids are excited about it. And so I choose to be excited about it.
Right. The whole point of the Summer Fun
I
Challenge
will
is that
be.
we are going to intentionally be present and show up for our kids. We're not going to survive the summer. We're going to thrive and have fun through the summer. And we're still trying to figure out the planning for us because Gracie usually goes to summer camp. And, it's for the whole summer and it's every day, all day. Not only is it quite expensive, but I'm like, I don't know if I want her to do that because then I can't actually do anything with her. I really do want to do other things. So I'm trying to decide, whether we should do partial summer at summer camp, because that does give mom a break. It's the only time all year that I actually have time to myself to do the things I need to do. And I'm in the middle of writing my book and I'd love to have it done by the summer, end of summer. So we're still trying to figure that one all out, but we are going to still have
I've been in the middle of writing my book for about 2 years now.
Yeah, me too. Same. It's time to get it done, girl.
Yes, I know. I'm making it a priority at this point. I really am. I've got a plan.
That's right. So anyway, I just wanted to leave us with the last few thoughts. It doesn't matter where you're at. It's okay where you're at. That's what I want to say. That God's going to get you through whatever part of that journey that you're on. So you don't need to feel bad that you're not where you need to be. If God needs to take you back to a certain spot to remind you of where you're at and how far you've come, then he'll do that. If he needs to point out something in loving correction, he will. Okay. He lovingly corrects us. He doesn't condemn us. And then, he might use a situation with your adult children to show you like, hey, you remember what that was like when you were that age? You remember how I didn't tell you what to do? And I also believe that if we abide in him and we stay close to him, we will be able to operate out of that loving parent style. And I'm not saying we should just let our kids do whatever they want. I'm still an old school type parent that believes there does need to be correction or discipline. I don't think we should just let our kids do whatever they want. I don't think that's even safe. I don't think God would want us to do that. And I don't think it's even safe, emotionally safe or physically safe for our kids. But we do not need to condemn or criticize or give advice when they're not ready for that. So whatever's parenting part of the journey that you are on, it's okay. It's okay where you're at. God sees you. He partners with you. And it's not about pointing out the mistakes that you've made. And although I felt grieved in my spirit, it was more of an opportunity for me to see that this needs to be improved on. And it did build my relationship stronger. Not only with God, but also my children, and so it helped me to remember. That was one of those situations I think radically changed me. So I'm glad it happened. And I'm praying that I will remember that the next time a situation comes up like that. So anyway, that's really what I wanted to leave you with. I know this was kind of all over the place today, but a lot of times we just, again, we dig into the junk drawer. We are
all over the place.
We dig into the junk drawer. This is what we're dealing with right now. And I don't know what we're going to do next week. I keep saying we're going to do one thing, but I don't know. I just feel like whatever God brings across our path, there's a mom out there that is going through that. And she needs to go through that.
Yeah, I agree.
So really what we're doing is we're digging through our junk drawer openly in public with you.
Right.
So that's kind of what we're doing here. You know what I mean? So anyway, I think everybody can relate to at some point one of the things that we talk about if you're a mom at all.
Yeah.
And you're dealing with any extreme situations, then of course that that. Anyway, so we love you guys and we hope that you guys all have an awesome week. And we can't wait to be back together again. So we'll see you next time. Bye. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us and listening to the Junk Drawer Mamas podcast. If today's episode encouraged you, share it with a mom who could use a little extra love and support. We'd love to hear from you too. Leave us a review and let us know what you think or send us your ideas for what you want us to tackle in the junk drawer. You can email us anytime at junkdrawermamas@gmail.com. Stay connected with us on social media. Follow Dina at Specially Empowered Moms and Christina at Faith Through Foster Care for more encouragement and updates on our upcoming books. From two mamas in the throes of extreme parenting, we want you to know that you're doing a great job, mama, and you don't have to have it all together. But what's hidden can't be healed, so let's keep sorting through it together, one step, one story, and one laugh at a time. See you next time when we tackle another item in the junk drawer of life. Have an awesome week.